The deeper you go into these stories, the harder it gets to explain them away. One moment, it's scientists discussing distant possibilities. The next, it's children describing a landing in their schoolyard and drawing the same figures, down to the eyes. It's military pilots chasing objects that move like nothing human. It's a man who swears he worked on a machine that bends gravity, and another who risked his career to leak the truth. These aren't campfire stories. They're accounts from people with credentials, flight logs, classified access, and trauma. None of them are asking to be believed. They're just telling you what they saw, what they experienced, what they can't forget. And with every new voice, the picture gets stranger. So, the question isn't if something's out there. The question is, why are we only hearing this now? Some stories don't spread because they're unbelievable. They fade because they're too believable. In 1994, at a rural school in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, more than 60 children witnessed something no one could explain. It was a bright, cloudless day. The kids were outside for morning break, playing and running across the dry schoolyard. That's when it happened. A silver object descended beyond the brush line. No noise, no smoke, just silence. Followed by something even stranger, small figures stepping out. Dark skin, massive black eyes. Not walking toward the kids, but watching them. Standing still. And somehow, the children said, they felt a message. Not in words, but in their minds. A warning about the environment, about technology, about the future. Most of them didn't have the language for it at the time, but they felt it. Director James Fox joined Joe Rogan alongside legendary ufologist Jacques Vallée to talk about the case. They'd interviewed the children, now adults, decades later. And what struck them wasn't just how consistent the details remained, but how calmly they were delivered. No craving for attention, no dramatic retellings, just quiet certainty. The kind that stays with you. They went back to the school. They met the former head mistress who had been deeply skeptical at the time. But even she admitted something changed that day. The fear on the children's faces, the tears, the confusion. You can't fake that kind of panic. Not across 60 kids. So why didn't the world stop? Why wasn't this front page news for weeks? Maybe it's because the story was too strange. Or maybe it's because the witnesses were children, easy to ignore, easy to dismiss. But even now, decades later, those drawings still match. The details haven't changed, and the memory hasn't faded. Rogan brings up a haunting theory. What if schools aren't just a safe place to land? They're the perfect test audience. Innocent, honest, unfiltered. If something wanted to observe us without being challenged, where better to start than with children? Whatever the reason, that encounter in Zimbabwe remains one of the most credible, least debunked sightings in modern UFO history. And no one's been able to explain it. Not then. Not now. If you've spent even 5 minutes in the world of UFO conspiracies, you've heard the name Bob Lazar. And when he sat down with Joe Rogan, flanked by Jeremy Corbell, it felt like all the rumors had finally come home. Lazar's story hasn't changed in decades. He claims he was hired to work at a secret facility near Area 51, not to fly spacecraft, but to study how they worked. He describes a propulsion system unlike anything we have today. A small reactor that could bend gravity itself. No exhaust, no heat, no moving parts. Just controlled space-time. Science fiction, except he swears it wasn't. What makes Lazar so compelling isn't just what he says. It's how tired he looks saying it. He doesn't act like a man chasing fame. He acts like someone who wants out, but feels obligated to speak. During the podcast, he even cuts himself off at times, worried about what he's allowed to say, or how far to push the story. And yet, there's plenty of doubt. His education records are gone. Former employers claim they never heard of him. Critics call it all a hoax, but every time he's questioned, his answers stay exactly the same. Rogan doesn't hold back. He presses. He digs. But even after hours, the central mystery remains intact. If Lazar is lying, he's never once slipped up. If he's telling the truth, then the US government had alien technology in its hands decades ago, and it's been hidden ever since. When a guest with Ivy League credentials starts talking about alien technology, People listen differently. Avi Loeb isn't some fringe theorist. He's a theoretical physicist, a best-selling author, and the former chair of Harvard's astronomy department. And when he joined Rogan, he didn't bring blurry photos or secondhand sightings. He brought math. Loeb's obsession centers on Oumuamua, an object that passed through our solar system in late 2017. Most scientists chalked it up as a weird rock, a comet without a tail, or an asteroid with unusual shape. But Loeb saw something else, something too fast, too smooth, too thin. He believes it might have been a light sail, a paper-thin piece of alien technology designed to travel through the stars, using nothing but radiation from a star to push it forward. Not a ship with passengers, more like a probe, a message, a clue. What makes his claim so fascinating isn't just what he says, it's how he says it. Calm, thoughtful, always leading with data. For him, it's not about proving aliens exist. It's about treating the possibility with the same seriousness we give any scientific unknown. And what's even more striking, Rogan barely interrupts him. For once, he just listens. Maybe because Loeb speaks with the kind of authority you can't fake. If Loeb is right, then the first piece of alien tech may have already come and gone, silently, quickly, before anyone could stop it. But not every story on this list is about high-level math and cosmic speculation. Some stories are so vivid, they don't sound like memories. They sound like scars. Travis Walton was a 22-year-old logger in Arizona when, in 1975, he claims he was abducted by a UFO in the middle of the forest. His disappearance sparked a massive search effort and even led to lie detector tests, national headlines, and eventually a Hollywood movie, Fire in the Sky. But none of that compares to hearing Walton tell the story himself, calmly, quietly, across the table from Joe Rogan. He describes waking up on a raised table inside a sterile room, surrounded by small, silent beings. Pale skin, massive eyes, no expression, no sound, just cold observation. When he tried to fight, human-like figures appeared, masked him, and then, just like that, he was dumped back onto the side of the road, days later, with no memory of how he got there. The details are unsettling, not because they're dramatic, but because they aren't. There's no theatrical language, no exaggeration, just a man who looks like he's been living with something for decades. And it's not the lights or the ship or the aliens that haunt him. It's the silence, the lack of emotion, the way those faces never reacted, even as he screamed. Whether you believe him or not, one thing's clear. Travis Walton believes it happened. And when he talks about how it shattered his life, it doesn't feel like a hoax. It feels like trauma. Not all believers wear tinfoil hats. Some wear suits and security clearances. Christopher Mellon isn't just another guest on Rogan's couch. He's the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, a man who, for years, had access to the kinds of files most of us will never see. And for a long time, he kept his interest in UFOs hidden. Quiet conversations, careful confessions. But eventually, he made a decision that changed everything. Mellon became one of the key sources behind the 2017 leak of 3 Pentagon videos showing unidentified aerial phenomena, footage that has since been confirmed by the US government as authentic and unexplained. These clips, including the now famous gimbal and go fast encounters, sparked a shift in the entire conversation, moving UFOs from late-night radio into mainstream headlines. On Rogan's podcast, Mellon comes across as calm, measured, and deeply serious. He doesn't speculate wildly. He doesn't sensationalize. He just lays out what's already happened and what still hasn't been answered. Why are these objects defying known physics? Who's operating them? And why does the government still keep so much under wraps? Mellon doesn't claim to have all the answers, but he's one of the few people who's actually moved the conversation forward. Not with opinions, but with proof. And if he thinks the public deserves to know more, you have to wonder what else is still being held back. It's easy to laugh off the alien question, until you hear it from the people who've been closest to the edge, the ones who've flown the missions, studied the physics, risked their reputations, or lived through something they still can't explain. None of them claim to have the full truth. But when their stories line up, when the same patterns emerge across decades, careers, and continents, It stops feeling like coincidence. Maybe it's not about flying saucers or Hollywood tropes. Maybe it's about contact that's already happening, just not in ways we're equipped to see. And if even half of what's been said on that podcast is real, then the real question isn't, are we alone? It's, why are they staying quiet?